Thank you very much. Let me first respond to Dr. Harris and clarify one thing on school discipline. The issue is the differing of punishment by race for the same type of infraction, the disparity there as it relates to suspensions and expulsions. For the same fraction, black and brown students are disciplined and expelled at a much higher rate. That's what you call racial bias and racism. Madam Secretary, let me ask you, because I'm not so sure you really are clear about racial bias and what this all means. First of all, you're officially seeking to delay by 2 years an Obama rule aimed at combating disproportionate numbers of minority students in special ed classes. That's according to the Federal Register notice published on Tuesday. Secondly, you said you wanted all students, including students of color, to learn in safe environments. We all want that. Yet students of color are subjected to harsher punishments and disciplines. Should the president's view prevail in arming teachers, do you see why black and brown students are really worried and anxious about this? Very clear to me. And also, let me just ask you, as it relates your comments, as it relates to considering the elimination of the discipline guidance. Actually, this is a report in the wake of the tragic shootings in Florida. The White House released this report, School Safety Proposals, which imply really that black and brown students are responsible for mass shootings in schools, which is just not the case. This directive was really to ensure that students of color are not subject to the harsher disciplines and so now and practices. And now you're talking about possibly eliminating this based on the tragedy of gun violence in Florida. So can you comment on that, please? And if that's really what you're thinking about doing?
Thank you, Congressman. That particular piece of guidance has been under review per the executive order to review all regulation within the department. And this is a matter we take very seriously. Clearly, the goal is, the stated goal of the guidance is one that we all embrace to ensure that no child is discriminated against. And we are committed to reviewing and considering this guidance and taking appropriate steps if any are warranted. But I have nothing further to say at this point with regard to where that is.
Well, how about, let's go to the delay of the regulation requiring a strategy to combat disproportionate numbers of minority students in special ed classes. Why the 2-year delay on that?
The delay is to ensure that we have a regulation that really does meet the needs of students that are disabled in any way.
By 2 years, though? Why would you do that?
We are committed to upholding the provisions of IDEA, and I want to be very clear that we're addressing this issue appropriately. There have been varying opinions and very different approaches to this within the community that are most concerned about this. We want to ensure that we end up with a regulation that does address these issues appropriately.
Another example of the fact that I think that more and more every day that your head is in the sand about racial bias and racial discrimination. I wrote you a letter June 2017 concerned about school segregation and what this means in terms of addressing the adverse effects of segregation on minority students to ensure that every student has an opportunity for an equal education. You never answered that letter nor that question. I'd like for you to please respond to that.
I'm sorry if we have not yet responded to it. We are still waiting to actually have Senate-confirmed nominees become a part of the department, and would urge that this body encourage your fellow members of Congress.
Madam Secretary, you just don't care much about civil rights of black and brown children. This is horrible.
The gentlelady's time's expired. I really am trying to make sure everybody gets a second round here. So with that, we'll go to my good friend from Maryland, Mr.